Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Dedrick Martin, Superintendent for Caledonia Community Schools. We are going to begin our community town hall for the class of 2020. Hopefully everyone can see and hear my voice. If I could just have a few thumbs up for those that I can see on my screen, that lets me know the volume is working. Great. We're going to go ahead and begin tonight with a presentation that's designed to be approximately 1 hour in length. We will try to go through several topics at a high level, and that way we can reserve some time and opportunity for a question and response. Helping me tonight with this meeting and people who will be answering is myself, as the superintendent, so I'll start out. Next we have Miss Kristen Flynn. You probably see her there, she's waving. She's our new executive director for student achievement. And of course we have the high school principal, Mr. Joe Linish. He will be doing the majority of the presentation as he will have a lot more specifics. For anyone who just joined, again, I want to quickly review the norms, but I believe everybody has done a great job of turning their microphone on mute. And because of the number of people and how the Zoom works, we ask if you could keep your video off for now. There is a chat icon at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question, and we will try to get as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. And as I stated earlier, we are picturing this to be approximately 1 hour in length. With that being stated, I'm going to start out by speaking to a few of the big ticket items that I'm sure is on the minds and hearts of all of our seniors and the parents. One is you're going to hear a little bit about our distance learning plan, and we have some information coming out pretty soon for all of our families, but just know that we have submitted our application to KISD just earlier today. We plan on beginning our distance learning plan next week on the 23rd. We are also in the process of deploying up to about 300 Chromebooks for some families throughout our school community who need them, and we are working on hotspots as well. We realize that not everyone will be able to participate via online services, so we're making provisions for those students and families who can't participate in an online fashion. So just know that some more information is coming out about our distance learning plan, and we do hope to get approval from the ISD and the state really soon. I want to speak to the issue of grades and credit attainment. First and foremost, in this difficult time, one of the things that I've talked to superintendent colleagues across the region and across the state, and it's almost unanimous that we, as well as many other school districts, will be moving to a credit attainment model, meaning that there will not be grades given for the final trimester of the year. But we don't want that to be confused as if there's not expectations for the students to participate and complete their coursework. So as we begin our distance learning plan, students will receive credit for participation and completion of assignments. And if they choose not to, then unfortunately students, you don't earn credit for that class, which means if you are a senior and you need credits to graduate, you must be able to participate and complete those assignments. If you are not a senior, any other grade level, in order to be considered for promotion to the next grade level, we do expect participation. We realize, again, that some people will have some challenges in a distance learning environment, and we are working with individual families to make sure that we we'll have a way to provide the best that we can for the families, whether that's digital or whether that is non-digital. But we will work with families to help all of our students get across that line. As it pertains to GPA, for all students and particularly for seniors, the GPA standard that was in place at the end of the second trimester will be the GPA standard that we will use because there is a concern with equitable access and supports for students not being what it would typically be in a face-to-face school environment. We are going to use the GPA that was already in place that you have worked on through the course of your high school career and for 2/3 of the year. We were so early into the third trimester that and in our typical model, sometimes kids will work on an assignment or take a test and they have an opportunity to improve their grade. But there was just no way to do that in an equitable fashion. So with that being the case, the GPA standards that you acquired through your high school career and up until the end of the second trimester will be the GPA that is established. Also, as it pertains to class ranks will be based on the accumulation of work done through your high school career and the GPAs that were acquired and established up through the end of the second trimester of the school year. I do know that, people may have the question, well, what does this mean as it relates to college admissions? And that's another question that I know just this morning I was getting some information from a college that my own child is interested in. Interestingly enough, that college has recognized, just like everyone, that this is not just a Caledonia issue, it's a state and a national issue, and that college has already indicated that they will be making some adjustments and taking a totality of students' work up to this point, because this is a disruption in everyone's lives. So just to make that easy and quickly, credit attainment, we expect all of our students, and especially our seniors, if you have not acquired all the credits necessary to graduate, you do not get a pass, sorry. You do have to participate in order to receive your credit to graduate. GPAs have been already established, so you will not lower or you will not reduce your GPA ranking at this point, and class ranking will be established on the data that we have achieved up to this point. Graduation ceremony, I know that is a big question on the mind of everyone, and so I have instructed Mr. Linish as well as our district in general. We have not made the decision to actively cancel our current graduation date, but that doesn't mean that we're going to move forward with that graduation until we hear more information from the state. As long as our stay home, stay safe order is in place, and we know that is in place through the end of the month of April, we have to honor that. But we, right now we don't know if it will be completely lifted in April, if it will be extended, if there will be a gradual release, such as maybe only 50, no more than 50 people congregating together at a time. And so if you recall from the very first information we received from the state, they initially put out an order that they didn't want groups of more than 50 people together at a time. And so if there's any type of stipulation like that, that would obviously have to change what we could do with our graduation ceremony. So the long and the short of this is that when we have more clear direction from the state of Michigan, we do plan on trying to do some type of activity or culminating event. Maybe it's a traditional graduation, maybe it is not a traditional graduation. I want to be clear about that. We want to see what the state deems as safe for us to do. And then we will start to make decisions accordingly. So when we have some clear information, whatever time that is, we will share out what our plans are. I do know the high school team has been thinking about a number of different things that they can do to honor the seniors. But until we have clarity on that, we cannot actively go in a graduation. So I do anticipate that the graduation date may change. The graduation ceremony may be traditional. It may not be the traditional. We just have not made a final decision, as we want to hold out hope and wait to see what information we get from the state of Michigan, so that we can start making adequate and appropriate decisions. I think with that, we're going to go into the heart of the presentation, and that is going to be led by our principal, Mr. Joe Lenish. And so I'm going to turn over the mic to Mr. Lenish, and when you want me to flip to the next page, please let me know.
All right, and Dr. Martin, can you hear me now? All right, so first I just want to say hi to the seniors. I know this has been tough on you guys, and I just want you to know that you're really at the forefront of our thoughts. It has been an awesome year, and there's always kind of this saying with administrators that your senior class really builds your school year for the climate and culture. And I know I've told you guys already, but this has been an awesome school year, and you guys have been a great senior class. I just want to let you know that we're doing everything we can to create clarity for you. And make sure that we can get you guys graduated. That's our number one priority, and then find unique ways to celebrate you. So I get to cover quite a bit of the parts of our distance learning plan. Dr. Martin, if you want to push to the next slide there. So the first place that we'll kind of start is with seniors, like what are you still going to have to complete? We did fortunately get some guidance in the executive order that lets us to kind of define what is a completer at this point based off of the March 31 closure. So what this means for you as seniors is if you've met all of the MMC requirements and you've met the 28 credits required to graduate from CHS, and I'm going to talk about 28 credits. There's also the 0.75 in there for interims, but we're going to kind of look at it in a different bucket for this conversation. So if you have all 28 credits at this point going into third trimester, and you've already accomplished that, and you've met the MMC requirements, you will be done. You will be considered a completer, and you will not be required to complete distance learning for the third trimester classes that you're currently enrolled in. Next slide, please. So what does that mean for the students that still have credit requirements that you need to get in? So if you don't have the 28 credits, or you are still working on some of your Michigan Merit graduation requirements. So for a lot of you, that would be, you might have a senior English class that's a requirement from the state. We have some kids that are taking econ. You might have a fourth year math class that you're finishing up. Any of those things that need to be done, you will need to continue to participate in those distance learning classes that your teachers will be sending out to you shortly. And so you will only participate in those classes. And so we'll do some work to make sure we communicate with you what those requirements will be and which classes you'll still have to be engaged in. And it's kind of the same as it is for the rest of the students. You'll earn credit for those courses, not a letter grade. So a big thing for you too is that end date is still the same for you, which is May 14th. So you'll be required to participate in those online distance learning classes from April 22nd to May 14th. Next slide. So this is the part where you'll have to be a little bit patient. So your counselors are working on this for you right now. So the last couple of days, they've been doing credit audit checks for all of you and trying to figure out for you which classes do you need to still complete to meet the MMC, and also which credits do you need to complete to get to your total of 28. So they will be reaching out to you starting tomorrow, but understand that they have about 80 students per caseload. So it may take a few days for them to reach out to you and get to everyone as they work through their caseload. But please, students, make sure you're checking your Cal Schools email. I know some of you aren't real good at checking that at sometimes when you're not in school, but that's something that's going to be that primary first connection for your counselor to be able to reach out to you. And so you will have to, for those classes, you still have to complete, engage, and reasonably meet the expectations that that teacher sets for you. And a big part of that reasonable expectation is we know there's going to be maybe some barriers for students that will have to work through initially with getting access to technology, getting used to Google Classroom for teachers not using it already. So there's going to be some flexibility, but you're going to have to make sure that you engage to earn that credit to graduate. And then obviously any of our students that need support, so if you're a student that has an IEP or a 504 plan, our student services department, they've really been working hard to make sure that within these distance learning courses, there'll be embedded supports for you, as also you'll get obviously some connection from them in that personalized support. Next slide. So I've already seen this question pop up in the chat. I saw it a few minutes ago, but for those of you that have a third trimester class that you're still going to have to complete to get to your 28 and you meet the MMC, if before March 11, so before the closure, you were not passing that class, you will not be required to make up the work that you were missing or maybe that you didn't do as well on as you wish you had it. So basically it's going to start when you guys start your classes next week. It's going to be from that point forward is what's going to determine whether or not you receive that credit. So your teachers aren't necessarily going to go back in and change those grades if you've submitted something late or give you the makeup work for those classes. When we get to the end of the trimester, basically what's in the grade book will be changed to that credit for you or an incomplete. We do have some seniors too that are working on completing NCs that they've had from previous trimesters. And that's due to the attendance policy. So if you were someone that had 8 or more absences or 13 absences, and you are still waiting to receive your letter grade from a previous trimester, obviously you can't complete detentions to be able to make up that time that you missed. So for those students, we will just reinstate your grade or credit for those classes. We do have a few students too that maybe missed an interim 1 year. So there are various reasons that happens from time to time. But understand if you're a student that has to make this up, you will not have to do your community service or the additional activities that are required for you to make up that credit. We're actually just going to waive it for you so you don't have to do it. Next slide, please. All right, so a little bit about virtual learning. And we have a couple of different groups of students that are involved in some virtual learning. So the first one we'll talk about is Michigan Virtual. So in my school at Kent. So we have kind of two different groups. Some of our students are enrolled at the ISD for that program. And then some of us are through a provider or a vendor that we use called Michigan Virtual, which is a nonprofit. So for all of you, you'll be re-engaging. Hopefully you've been engaging a little bit in those classes already while we've been on the closure. But you'll be re-engaging and then you'll be allowed to complete all of your assessments at home. So that's something that's kind of new. Obviously, we can't require students to come into a facility to have a proctored assessment, which is the typical norm, but it'll be opened up so that you can take the assessment at home and continue your progress. And for your Michigan virtual courses, you'll be able to choose to receive that letter grade or the credit grade. And the reason that it's the letter grade for Michigan virtual is because they are the ones that issue the letter grade, not CHS. And then students at my school at Kent, you guys will receive credit for the courses that you complete during this virtual period for us. So KISD programs, so that's my school. This also includes Kent Innovation, KCTC, some of those programs. You will be required to complete those programs as is outlined by the ISD. They're working on sending out some guidance to all the students pretty shortly here. They are working on providing distance learning for you guys, especially in those CTE programs. And they're looking to start around, I think it sounds like the 20th. So you're going to get communication from the ISD programs letting you know what those expectations are pretty shortly. And so it's really going to be the expectation of those school programs to be able to give you clarity around what it is that you're going to have to be required to complete and earn your credit. So we do have a couple other unique things, work-based learning and AP students. So with work-based learning, obviously those of you that are in this class, some of you have been significantly impacted by the closure of a lot of businesses. And so with students not being able to attend workplaces and work on their skills there, it's not really fair to say you must go out and find a new job. Some of you have a job that's just on hold until after some of this passes. So what we've decided to do is basically just give students credit for it. So the work that you did in the first couple of weeks of the trimester is going to be that requirement, which means that you will receive credit for that course. AP students, you guys will receive credit for completing your distance learning plan. I know that we've been meeting a lot with your departments, the departments in your classroom teachers, and talking a lot about AP students. Just know that that work that will be provided to you in those Google Classrooms will be really heavily engaging in preparing you for that AP test that you have coming up. Understand that the AP test has been moved online. I know you guys have received communication about that. And those dates are set from May 11th through May 22nd. You can reach out to your individual teacher if you have questions about that. And Mrs. Scott, who is the assistant principal at the high school, is also kind of our expert when it comes to that AP testing and AP. So feel free to reach out to her as well. All right, so dual enrollment. For you guys, it's going to be really up to that school that you are enrolled in. So if we could advance the slide there. So really those schools, those colleges are going to set that expectation for you. Hopefully they've already been engaging with you around what your expectations are going to be for completing that coursework. If this is something that you do have a question about, or you're not getting the communication you feel like you should be getting from those providers, this is something that you can definitely connect with your counselor on as a resource to make sure pretty quickly that you're getting a good understanding of what's going to be expected from those colleges for you to complete your dual enrollment requirements. All right, so credit recovery. So if you get to the point at the end of this trimester for you, which is May 14th, and you have not met your graduation requirements, we do have some opportunities. Again, like I said, our priority, our number one focus right now is to get you graduated. And so we want to make sure that we have opportunities for you to quickly recover any credits that you might need before the end of the year. So if there's a concern with a class and you still have not completed what's required and you're not going to receive a credit, then we will place you in an online credit recovery course. And so it's going to be treated just like 0-hour and 6-hour traditionally is now. We're just going to do it in a virtual format with the same teachers kind of proctoring and being your coaches for that. So you're going to have a window really between that May 14 and June 1st to try to complete any of those credits that you need to make up. If you had credit deficiencies before the start of third trimester, you're probably already in a 0-hour or a 6-hour course. So make sure that you're working on that. I know Mrs. Fallett and Mr. Durkee are still there. They're still working with you guys. So make sure that you're following through with them to get that taken care of. But again, we're really looking to have students have that wrapped up by June 1st. If you have graduation requirements that are not completed by that June 1st deadline, you will not be considered graduating on time. You still will have a little bit of time to go ahead and finish up, but at that point, we're saying you're kind of late and we need to look at some type of credit recovery over the summer. If you have one of our credit recovery classes that you're still enrolled in, we'll give you a little bit of flexibility if it's beyond that June 1st deadline, but we're not going to take anybody in those courses past May 21. And so that really eliminates that lagging too far into the summer. So if you need it, it might be a little extra time at the end of the school year, but we're not going to give you a lot. And then obviously, we'll give you lots of resources. So if you're a student that needs credit recovery over the summer, our main provider is the ISD, My School at Kent. And we also do have some other credit opportunities that your counselors can, if you get to that point, make sure that you have access to. Okay, next slide, senior events. We do have a couple of updates, and kind of like Dr. Martin said here, there's still a lot of uncertainty with a lot of this stuff, and even with when that stay safe, stay home order is dropped, it's going to be likely maybe a significant amount of time before large groups of people can assemble. So obviously senior awards, that's directly connected to graduation in a lot of ways. So any planning that we do around graduation and decisions of graduation will kind of impact what we're planning on doing with senior awards, or if we're doing it in a different format, or what does that mean? Senior assembly, obviously, after we did a lot of work and I had a lot of great conversations with seniors and families about finding a way to get senior assembly going for this year. Unfortunately, at this time, we're just going to have to cancel it because, we're not in school. So that school closure really impacts our ability to do that. But there are pieces of senior assembly that I really believe are essential to celebrating our students. In whatever we do at the end of the year to celebrate seniors, there may be portions of that are brought into that celebration as well. I know we have a senior that's been working really, really hard on getting a senior video done all school year. And I've made her a promise that we're going to commit to helping her get that completed. And so whatever format that is to get that and the other things that come with the senior assembly, we'll kind of evaluate that and do our best to fit it in somewhere. Prom has been canceled at this point. The big piece of that was contractually. We only had a certain timeline before we could choose to keep our date or not, and then obviously we would have lost a lot of funds for prom if we wouldn't have met our contract. So we don't know at this point if there's anything else we're going to do with prom. Again, that kind of goes with graduation. We're just going to have to wait and see what might be the possibilities down the road based off of gathering large groups of people. Okay, and then Mr. Townsend wanted me just to share a couple of things with you. They're working on some ways to celebrate seniors in athletics. We do feel bad for you seniors. I know as an athlete myself in high school, it was such an important part of my experience in high school. So we are going to try to find some ways to make sure that we celebrate you guys. One of the ways is they're putting together a senior athletic video. So this is something that your varsity coaches are working on. And they will be sending some questions to you and working on getting some video that will be used in kind of a production that will be put together to celebrate you guys. Equipment and uniforms for a lot of our spring sports, that a lot of that hasn't been handed out yet. My understanding is with lacrosse, there's been an arrangement made, but moving forward, obviously, we'll wait till that opportunity comes after the stay-home order is lifted for all students at some point down the road to be able to access things in the building, and we'll kind of follow that guideline as it comes out with the same thing with uniforms and getting equipment back to CHS. And then they're also looking at other ways in the athletic department to recognize you as senior athletes. So make sure you stay connected to the athletic website and social media for some of that stuff that's going to come up as well. All right, that's really it for the bulk of my presentation. While I have the mic for a second, I just want to say one more time, seniors, we really appreciate you guys. You are in the forefront of our thoughts, and we'll keep doing everything that we can to get you guys graduated, support you the best that we can, and then celebrate you the best way that we can as well.
So this is Dr. Martin again. Thank you for your leadership in this area, Mr. Linish, and for all of our seniors. We're getting ready to go into the question and answer phase, and for parents as well. We do realize that this is very disheartening because you've been working towards this moment for 13 years to do all the fun activities that we normally think of when we think of our senior year and graduating. And so for that, we do apologize. And I'm sure everyone understands that, much of this is really beyond our control because safety is first and foremost. And we want to make sure that when we bring people back, we can do so in a safe way. With that being stated, I think we're going to turn it over to Mrs. Flynn, our Executive Director for Student Achievement, and she is going to help moderate some of the questions for us.
All right, so forgive me if some of these have been answered, but I want to make sure that we get them all answered. Will the grades that the students already earned during third try have any weight on the new credit, no credit model?
So if I understand that correctly, then the students won't have to worry about the grade that they had prior to the closure. So they will just receive credit at the end of the trimester, and whatever grade they had at the beginning of the trimester will not impact positively or negatively their earning of their credit. They just really have to focus on the instruction that the teachers are providing them from here on out to earn that credit.
This one's based on the online AP classes. How will the fact that credit being given versus grades affect our GPA since we have a trimester schedule?
And if I remember correctly, when I read that, that was in regards to a student who was taking an online AP class. And so I think that Mr. Lenish actually was able to answer that one because it's a Michigan virtual class. they'll have the option of completing it for a grade or for credit. The fact that it's semester or trimester shouldn't be affected. They'll just need to commit or finish it based upon Michigan Virtual's expectation, but they will get to choose whether or not they get a grade or credit.
Right, and there are many questions, several for various reasons, about getting back into school, either to return books, pick up an instrument, clean out athletic lockers. This is kind of clumping a bunch of them, just access to the building.
So I'll take that one. All the buildings will be sending out a schedule of access for the building. So initially we sterilized our buildings thinking that we would be down for 3 weeks when the order first started and we would all return. Realizing that we are having to close out our year, they are working on a schedule for students to get into the buildings and get the items that they need, for athletes to get into the buildings and get the things that they need. So look forward to some information that specifically will give access, and do understand that it will be done in a way that's consistent with best practices that was sent to us by the Kent County Health Department. They have sent some guidance and some recommendations on how we should allow people to access facilities without creating groups too large where we have a problem with social distancing.
I'm assuming at that time that would be the opportunity for families to pick up graduation gowns and tassels as well. One of those times when building access is available, or we're not sure on that one yet?
Not sure on that one yet, unless Mr.
Okay.
Linish has the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find a systematic way at some point to be able to get seniors those items that they purchased for graduation. So whether it's at that initial building entrance, or if way down the road there's an opportunity also, more towards the summer, for students to come in and get larger amounts of stuff and things like that. So yeah, at some point we'll make sure, especially since they purchased it and they probably want to take pictures with it and all of that, we will make sure we find a way to get that stuff to seniors.
Okay.
Kristen, I noticed that there was a question in regards to picking up AP art materials. And I wanted to address that because AP art, they actually changed the exam to where students would not be submitting a portfolio because of that concern, because students would, not have access to their art materials. So I would really encourage that AP art student to reach out to their AP art teacher, Mr. Chamberlain or Mr. Reeder, to get some more guidance on that, because the very nature of submitting your exam has changed. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be all online, so you shouldn't need necessarily the materials for submitting the portfolio piece, but please feel free to reach out to your AP art teachers for more direction on that.
All right, a parent question for our son with 29.5 credits, but they're taking econ for third try, which is a requirement. Does that mean then with the minimum 20 or the 28 credits for requirement, they do not have to finish the econ class?
Yes, so they would not have to complete the econ, or they would have to complete the econ. They would not have to complete the rest of their courses. So they would just continue to stay enrolled in their econ course, earn that credit, but the other courses they could choose to drop, the other 4.
All right, will credit be given in AP classes? Will it still be awarded as an honor point? Does the letter grade, I might have written this on, as an honor point for letter grades for those classes?
I'll answer it if you want to. No, the answer is no. Their GPA at the end of second trimester is what their GPA is. And so there would be no honor point awarded to getting credit this trimester.
Couple athletic questions. Since senior assembly, well, there's various ones here, but senior assembly will not be taking place. Will athletic awards and top 10 awards still be recognized at some other point? That's probably progress.
Yes, they'll be recognized in some format. Obviously, we can't guarantee that it's going to be in the same format or way that it always has been, but we will make sure that we recognize our students.
Also wondering about spring signing day, if that will happen virtually or otherwise.
I'm not sure unless you have an answer. I mean, we can't bring people and the families in for spring signing. So we'll have to get with the athletic director and figure out what they would do with that. But we envision that that would be significantly different.
All right, so I think this has been answered, but just in case, if a student is a completer, so they already have the 28 plus credits, but is taking AP classes, will she have to complete the assignments given in distance learning?
That's actually a really good question because it will apply to some AP students and not to others. So it's going to depend on, it kind of goes back to that econ question. So if your student is taking AP English, the answer to that would be yes, because in order to meet the senior English requirement, they need to complete all 3 trimesters. So the students doing AP English are yes, they need to complete. If your student is taking an AP math class, such as AP statistics, and they need the math credit, and again, your counselors will get with you about whether or not you do. So you'll know for sure within the next day or 2, but the simple answer would be for sure, yes, for those of you that are doing AP English as your senior English, maybe for those of you that are doing AP Math. It really depends on how many math credits that you already have, so you're going to need more guidance on that. The rest of them, the rest of the AP classes, your science classes, they're possible. There's a maybe there with science, it's possible. But most of the rest of them, no, they're not going to be required. I would encourage you to stay in there because you're going to get the best exam preparation by staying with your AP teachers. So.
All right, will getting credit versus a grade drop a student's GPA?
No.
No.
So your GPA is essentially frozen. Your cumulative GPA that you earn by the end of the second trimester is essentially frozen. So that is your GPA as a graduating student. It will not be reduced or increased through completion of the credits necessary to graduate.
Question about what grade is considered passing. A son of a parent was sick during the last week before and missed a lot of assignments.
So any grades that were earned in the first couple weeks, all of that work will be considered as a credit, no credit. So it's really more so dependent on what you do from next week moving forward and completing your assignments. And the reason being is as soon as we had the COVID-19 outbreak, and during the first week we were receiving emails, or I was receiving emails from students and parents about making up assignments. Some needed to get with teachers, and these were things that we just couldn't do in an equitable way. So the only fair way to do it, since we were early into the start of the third trimester, is to do a credit, no credit model. So the grades that you've earned for the first 2 trimesters, those are locked and solid. Any grades that you had up to the 11th, it doesn't hurt you if you had a grade that you wish you could bring up. But if you choose not to participate and you need to get credits for the purpose of graduation, it could hurt you in terms of not graduating. As long as you participate and go through the assignments, and teachers will be reaching out to students, they can help you with that. You'll be fine. And so there is not really, you get an F if you don't participate, if you don't do anything. As long as you participate, you should earn credit.
So there's a question about reviewing what completer means again.
So I'll start this and then Joe can finish it off. There are some students who have met all the Michigan merit curriculum requirements. So they've acquired their credits in math and science and English and elective credits. So they have everything they need to graduate and technically could graduate early. If you are one of those students, and there are a handful of those students, they are considered a completer, and they're not actually required to have to participate. They're just waiting for graduation. Very similar to if you are in college and you had to go one more semester, you might go that fall semester, but you participate in the spring graduation. So think of a completer like that. If you're not a completer, it means you have credits that you need to take and accrue before you are able to graduate. You can clean it up, Mr. Lanish.
Yeah, so how this happens is because our students really take, if you take a full load every year and pass all your courses, you get 30 credits. So obviously there's 2 credits with each class being 0.5 of a credit. So that's really that 4-class leeway range for students. So that's how some students may actually already have a full 28, is because if you complete all 4 years, you actually can earn 30 or more at CHS. So that's how some of those students are kind of in that ballpark where they might be able to be done because they already have the 28 needed.
So various suggestions on prom, from people with venues to wanting to host later in summer, to taking the funds from prom to help a charity and support healthcare workers on the front line of COVID. Just questions about, and I know we don't have answers to those, but wondering if that's a possibility down the road.
So I think with prom and with anything that would bring a large gathering of people, the reason why we can't commit to it right now, the first issue was we had to make a decision with the venue that we were paying for. And it was very clear that things were not going to be cleared up in time for prom. If there's an adjustment or anything made, a lot of it will depend on what we see out of the next governor's order. We've heard everything from an extension, or I have heard everything from an extension of stay home, stay safe, to everything returns to normal, to it being a modified fashion. If they say, you know, and we've heard as this thing rolled out, it went from about 50 down to like 10, and then we were in a completely stay home, stay safe. If they come back and say you can only have 50 people at a time, then that would not necessitate or make it viable for prom. If this drags out, you know, so quite honestly, a lot of it depends on how serious people take the stay home, stay place and order and the slowdown of the virus. If the virus continue to spread and people continue to lose their lives, or we're seeing large numbers of sickness go throughout our state, who knows what the governor's decision will be as it pertains to an extension or a gradual release. If the gradual release is too long into the summer, that would make something like prom not doable. There's other things we could do to raise money or donate money if the class of 2020 want to do that for the purpose of giving to the first responders and the healthcare workers, and I think that's certainly a laudable thing to do. But I've instructed the high school administration that until we have clarity, I would not let prom move forward or graduation. But I didn't want to cancel anything until I was at that red line point where we had to make a decision. And so prom, we had to make a decision based on the contract. Mr. Linish, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so the only thing that I had to add, so just with the donating money, it's because the prom from one year actually pays for the prom the next year. So because we haven't sold any tickets, there really isn't a way to use that as a fundraising effort to be able to give that away to a charity to support something.
I know we don't probably have this answer, but when will diplomas or final transcripts be available?
Good question. Ms. Scott, would you have an idea on that? No?
Okay. To be
Diplomas
determined.
and final transcripts? Well, they typically are available a couple of weeks after the end of the first trimester. So that would be my best guess on that one. Mr. Lanish, do you have anything to add or an agreement with that?
A couple more questions. These are maybe people that came in late, just about getting books and other items left in lockers, that we will be doing a schedule coming up once the stay home order is lifted. So I'll be looking for that. Somebody's asking about how do we get refund for lunch money, lunch funds.
Yes, so I think the best way to do that is to send a email to our food service department. If you have another student in the system, that can probably be credited or rolled over. If not, and it's just a reimbursement, you would do that by contacting our food service department, sending them an email of your information, and they will start working through the refund process.
All right, somebody's asking about what's the status of the senior all-night party.
Okay, I think Mr. Linish had that.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with the parents. So that is run by a group of parents in the senior class. And so I've been in communication with them. You know, they're pretty committed to having something, you know, to doing whatever they need to do to pull that off. But obviously, a lot of that will be kind of predicated around what happens with graduation and the whole timing of that as well. So I do know at this point there's not going to be anything issued as far as refunds or anything, because they really would like to try to get that event still ongoing based off of what we do with graduation.
All right, somebody's asking about getting yearbooks. I'm assuming they'll be in line with the same plan when we know about graduation gowns and tassels and other things.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Looks like Craig is on the committee for the senior all night, saying they're trying very hard to plan that. More to come. How will articulation to universities work? If I'm not getting a GPA letter grade for the class, how will I get credit for the course?
So, you know, I think a lot of that will depend on the individual university. So I'm going to speak just as a father, and I don't have a senior, I have a junior, but we visited a few colleges, and one of them sent something just letting them know that that college will, and it was a Michigan college, they will accept credit, no credit. And the GPA that was attained and assigned by the school at the point, or the final GPA assigned by the school. So again, your final GPA has essentially been determined through your previous 3 years and the 2/3 of the year that took us through first and second trimester. So we have a GPA that will go on your transcript, and then the rest will be credit, no credit. For those high school students who don't have a older sibling in college, in some colleges you can take a course as credit, no credit. So this is not unusual in the college world, but very unusual in public education. We get it, but it should not hurt you. And at least that was a communication email that I received just this morning for my son who's looking at a college in the future. So I would imagine that we'll probably start to see and get more information, or people who are enrolled in colleges or applying will probably start getting more information directly from those universities. And so this was the first one that we got today, but I imagine a lot of colleges will follow suit. I didn't know if Mr. Linish or Ms. Scott had any they wanted to add to that.
Okay. Our teacher's going to offer a Zoom meeting once a week to communicate beyond just emails. I will tell you that we have been working collaboratively with teachers, with administrators around the district to be able to put out a plan, hopefully by Friday, on the website that highlights everything that we're doing. So yes, video conferencing will be a part of that. Teachers K-12, pre-K-12 really, will be using Google Hangouts and the whole Google suite so that it's consistent. You're not doing different things for different students if you have multiple students in different levels across the district. And so yes, there will be availability beyond just email. Somebody's asking about, okay, this is a long question. I'll read it. It's about fundraising. By fundraising, from my perspective, we'd be maximizing the value and influence of our senior year by contributing to a cause that helps not only our local community, such as student, staff, but relatives in healthcare, but also helps the state fight the crisis. Says this is potential to fundraise through the school, even if not through prom. How would you want the class of 2020 to work with you guys, I'm assuming administrators, to attempt to do that? Individually email with interest, or since you said the class of 2020 wanted to do so, could we try to work towards that? I think most of us would want to help in some way, even if it is just through school promoting pre-existing charities. It's a great question.
Mr. Lenish, I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah, so some of the difficulty with fundraising and not being able to physically see something is we have a policy that's in place that doesn't allow us to park school-raised funds, so funds that come into a school account, and then take those funds and write a check to an organization. So if we were to do some type of fundraising, it would have to be really creative on how we could do it without those funds landing in our school accounts. Typically, when we do a fundraising at some type of sporting event or those types of things, we've moved to a policy where that person from that organization is at that event, and we physically provide and give them the donation so that those funds are not landing in our school accounts. So we would just have to be really creative around our ideas of how that would work.
Has there been any thought of dropping the requirement of third trimester of AP English for seniors who are not planning to take the exam?
Okay, I've seen this come up a few times, and so fortunately for the students and parents, their counselors are watching this too and have been contacting me behind the scenes. In the past, we have preferred students stay in for all 3 trimesters to get the credit. And I think that that's been a good requirement for a lot of reasons. But based upon some conversations that I've had with the counselors here in the last few minutes, I think that the consensus is going to be that we are going to allow AP English Lit students 2 trimesters of English to suffice, particularly for those that are not taking the exam. But I say that hesitantly because I really hope that you don't all, decide I want to, hop out of the class because now I don't need to get the credit, or maybe I don't want to take the exam now because I don't need to get the credit. Truly, the exams are now designed to be easier, and it's to your benefit to stay in and attempt to take that exam and attempt to get that credit. But technically, yes, based upon conversations, those of you that have already successfully completed your 2 trimesters of AP Lit will have your AP English credit for it. You do need to communicate with your counselor if it is your intent to not stay in the class. But please do it.
I know we kind of addressed this earlier, but different suggestions about graduation, somebody asking for a traditional graduation ceremony in the fall, as Grand Valley State is doing. So just bringing that up there as a possibility. Are the required classes held at a specific time during the day, or can we complete them at our own time? They are asynchronous, so the courses can be done at your own time, own pace, correct? So they do not need to log in during third hour, for instance, to see a teacher teaching live. Somebody suggesting graduation coinciding with homecoming weekend in the fall. That's another suggestion. Let's see if I missed some up top. I think I did. What happens if you have a student taking 6th hour in order to get credit to graduate? Will they still graduate?
Yeah, so as long as they complete that requirement, we really need them to be done by that June 1st deadline. So if you're currently in either a 0-hour or a 6th-hour course, keep working on that, keep plugging away, and then try to get it done by that June 1st deadline.
How will the freeze in cumulative GPA affect those who are just below a 3.5 GPA, such as myself with a 3.488 cumulative, who are going to rely on the third try to move up for a college or scholarship?
You are stuck at the 3.44 cumulative at this point.
Okay. I think we answered the AP Lit student. I think you answered the AP Lit. Classes are asynchronous, so at your own pace. We talked about textbooks and lunch fees. Hopefully be able to do that. Can parents receive an email regarding credits along with the students?
We haven't clarified that yet quite with the counselors. I know the counselors have been really deep in trying to do these audits. The first primary function for them is going to be reach out to those students and the teachers right away. We have a meeting that's going to happen here shortly in the next day or two, and so we will talk about that and discuss that in what way we're going to be able to facilitate getting that communication also to the parents as well. but it will first initially come from the counselor directly to the student to get that ball rolling on getting those decisions made around the courses that they will stay in. And please, I just want to remind you, we've talked to them a lot, and just give them a little bit of grace and time too, because like we said, they've got a lot of kids to get through. So just try your best to resist the temptation to email them right away after this and try to figure out where you're at. So they'll get to you. They're working hard at it.
Somebody's asking about band and jazz band. I'm not sure what the question is. If it's about picking up instruments, at some point we'll have that opportunity to pick them up. Yeah,
so again, we do have to follow the Kent County guidance in terms of social distancing. And so we have received some guidance in terms of best practice on how to allow students to get back in. They are very close to getting that worked out. Once that is all worked out, you will receive some communication directly from the building on what days and what times will be available for families to come, for students to come and pick up the things that they need.
Question about interim payments. Will those be refunded?
Yeah, so we are currently working on that process. So the teachers are working to communicate with any businesses or companies or recreation facilities to get back payments that the district has made to those companies for interims. So what we will do is once we can, every interim has an individual account at school. Once we can confirm that the funds are back in that individual account, the teachers will be sending a list to our secretary at the high school indicating which students have paid already and how much they've paid. And then we will work on processing those interim refunds. So interims that maybe the money is still in those accounts and we haven't made payments to anybody else out of it, those will be the first ones we'll start processing. And then the ones that we're kind of depending on corporations or companies or contracts that we have to get back to us and give us the funds, we'll work to get those refunds out as we're getting the money back from those providers. So understand that for some of them, we're kind of at the mercy of those companies. So some of them may take quite a while to process. But as we're working with our teachers, they'll keep giving you updates down the road, letting you know where we're at with your individual interims refund process and where it's going to be or when it's going to be issued.
All right. My daughter's of my school at Kent student does not have a CHS email. How would she be notified in a timely manner?
Every student has a CHS email, but that's okay. If she doesn't use it, that may very well be the situation there. My suggestion to you and your student would be to reach out to your counselor directly with an email that they can contact you at.
I'm required to take, I'm taking 2 required classes in an elective. Do I need to participate in the elective?
Well, again, your counselor is going to let you know whether or not you need that elective to reach your 28 credits. So the fact that it's an elective wouldn't automatically mean that you don't need to take it. It's going to depend on whether or not you're at 28 credits.
How do we go about donating leftover lunch money to the food service department?
So again, you would reach out via email to the food service department and make your request or your desire known to the director, and they will reach out to you and take it from there.
The last question was about summarizing all of this. So aside from the recording that will be available, we'll be doing an FAQ of all the questions that were compiled here today and others that have come up and surfaced. So that will be made available website, email?
Yeah, so typically what we have been doing is generally about a week or maybe a little less after we do these online sessions, we'll compile, we answer the questions, and then we post it on the website. Our district website is getting pretty big, and so what we'll probably do is have this posted, since this is really just for seniors, we'll have this added to the high school and let them post it on their website. It'll probably be most appropriate there.
That looks like the questions that we have so far.
All right.
I think we got through most of them.
So perfect timing. We have 1 minute left. So I want to, definitely let the class of 2020 know, this is very tough for you. It's very tough for a lot of your teachers, your parents, because, high school graduation, this is something we realize you work, a lot of years to get to this point. And it's very disappointing. Rest assured that I feel very confident that from the high school staff members that I talk to, if there are some reasonable things that they can do to make it better, they're open to it. They're exploring it. Do understand that whatever we do, we will have to do it in a safe way. We don't want to jeopardize anyone's health, for a single event that'll last a night, considering the seriousness of COVID-19. So with that, we will continue to follow directions from the state and the county in terms of what's safe to do from a health perspective. We will announce additional decisions as it relates to if we're going to have a graduation ceremony. If it's not a traditional, what type of closing activity, what will we do for our seniors? But it is too early to give up, but it's also, I don't want to mislead people and say, oh yes, we're going to do this. And then we hear something different in the next couple of weeks that's beyond our control. So as difficult as this is, we want to be honest and transparent about where we are today. And so do know that we are here for you. The teachers will support you and get you across that line for completion for graduation. And, regardless of how things turn out, you have been an outstanding group of students. And, we look forward to you continuing to do great things, not only to finish up strong, but moving forward for the rest of your life and the rest of your academic career for those who are going on to college or something after high school. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lenish for any closing thoughts.
Yes, I just want to say a huge thank you to your teachers and let you guys know that your teachers have put a lot of time and effort into making sure that you have a successful experience online. I think you guys will find that it doesn't replace traditionally being in school, and it's difficult not being able to give you all those experiences that we really wish that we could give you. But I think you're going to find that it's a good, caring place that people are going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that we get you finished and make sure that your needs are met. And we'll stay committed to just continuing to explore whatever we need to celebrate you guys the best that we possibly can and send the class of 2020 out with hopefully a good celebration. So just stay committed, hang in there, and we'll stay committed to you to make sure you guys finish strong.
Okay. Look forward to specifics about the online learning instruction coming out later this week. And additional information will continue to be updated on our district website. And as far as the FAQ, we'll work on that and we will put that on the high school website. So thank you. And that officially concludes our class of 2020 town hall.